Good afternoon, and welcome to the Today's Dietitian CE Learning Library webinar, Insulin Delivery Devices Today and Beyond, What RDs Need to Know. Today's Dietitian is the only independent magazine written specifically for registered dietitians and nutrition professionals. We're proud to be the recognized resource for practical, reliable, and interesting information for the dietetics industry. Before we start today's presentation, I have 2 points of housekeeping. First, in order to claim your credit, you'll have to remain with us through the entire hour-long presentation. Second, at the end of the session, we'll take some questions. If you have a question, type it in the question box in your control panel, and we'll try to address as many questions as time allows. This complimentary one-credit continuing education webinar is brought to you with support from Medtronic and Hormel Health Labs. Medtronic is working together with the global community to change the way people manage diabetes, who are at the center of everything they do. They are transforming diabetes care by expanding access, integrating care, and improving outcomes so individuals can enjoy greater freedom and better health. Visit medtronic.com to learn more. Hormel Health Labs is a leader in providing great tasting and convenient nourishment to people when they need it most. Their sin-free products meet the needs of those with reduced sugar, fat, or calorie diets, including diabetics. Whether you're a major healthcare center, special care facility, or caregiver, Hormel Health Labs is here to help with your dietary needs. Visit hormelhealthlabs.com to learn more. Today's presenter has the following relevant disclosures to report. She is a consultant to LifeScan Diabetes Institute, Heartland Food Products Group, MontMed Inc., Tandem Diabetes Care, and Companion Medical. She certifies that no conflict of interest exists for this program. Hope Warshaw, MMSC, RD, CDE, BCADM, is a nationally recognized diabetes care and education specialist. She applies 40 years of experience in her work as a book author and freelance writer, media spokesperson, and consultant within her business, Hope Warshaw Associates, LLC. In 2016, Hope served as the president of AADE, recently renamed as the Association of Diabetes Care and Education Specialists. In June 2018, Hope joined the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics Foundation Board for a 3-year term. She currently works and resides in beautiful Asheville, North Carolina. And now I'm pleased to welcome my friend, Hope Warshaw.
Thanks, Leslie, for the generous introduction. I'm delighted to present this webinar today, and I echo your thanks to our sponsors. We have a lot to cover, so let's jump in. So these are the learning objectives in the order which I'll cover the content, and I'll assume that you've reviewed these when you registered. So why are we at this crossroads today? I'll just take a few minutes to set the stage for this webinar. Suffice to say, we're witnessing a confluence of factors which have led to our current crossroads. Due to research, which I'll mention, in years of observations by clinicians today, and because we have some improved insulin delivery devices, there's greater awareness and acknowledgement of the challenges and burdens of taking insulin. To the next point, there are now several research studies, again, which I'll mention, that have tested the use of tools like a meter that has a built-in bolus calculator to limit the math required in calculations. This evidence demonstrates that these tools can minimize the challenges of taking insulin. Lastly, and bolded because I think it's quite important, we now have and will continue to witness evolution in the capacities to obtain and use integrated diabetes data to improve both glycemic management and quality of life outcomes. And while this webinar is on newer insulin delivery technologies, we can't discuss these without talking about the availability and use of personal CGM. Personal CGMs, and I'll mention 2 brands, allow much greater frequency of checking glucose, and it is not blood glucose, it's actually interstitial fluid that is being checked. This nearly constantly measures glucose for closer observation of all the ups and downs of glucose levels and the impact of food and many other factors. In addition, CGMs allow the person with diabetes and their caregivers connectivity, and we'll get back to that word some more, between this data and newer insulin delivery devices, and the ability to look at integrated data to tweak or advance management. I think a quote by our colleague, Jamie Kowach, a person with 30 years of type 1, says a lot. Quote, "The single largest innovation of diabetes care of late is CGM technology." And this is a woman who has worn an insulin pump for a number of years. I'm quickly showing you the two major CGMs cleared by FDA and marketed in the US at this point. There is another CGM I will mention, the Guardian Sensor 3 by Medtronic, which is integrated with their insulin pumps. On the left is the family of Dexcom's G6 or Generation 6 products. On the right is one of the screens from Dexcom's Clarity data integration and analytics platform. The other device cleared in the US by FDA is Abbott's second generation FreeStyle Libre 2. It uses Bluetooth technology to automatically alert users about their glucose levels. On the left, you see the patch being scanned. The middle image is the sensor and receiver in the same graphic. And the right image is a screenshot of Abbott's proprietary data sharing software. And how can we do a presentation today without mentioning the impacts of COVID-19? And in diabetes and diabetes care, there is no exception. In the diabetes world, and I mean world, globally, I think practitioners are finding that there are some silver linings of COVID. There's been a rapid and successful pivot to deliver services via telehealth using remote technologies, and this has been enabled by a variety of technologies, some we're discussing today, that are allowing easier and more complete communication. These technologies are driving both the use of telehealth further, faster, and better. And I think there are a lot of practitioners as well as people with diabetes that hope that this is here to stay. One other topic regarding diabetes technologies that reflects the recent racial unrest, and this may surprise you, but there is research that shows that there are inequities in who gets offered technologies, and this has come out in a few recent and timely presentations. They seem to be offered more so to white, highly educated females who have health care coverage. The likely causes are numerous, as noted on the slide. The general message for us clinicians is to honestly explore our biases and change our ways if need be. So all of the factors I've just run through quickly are impacting this area of insulin delivery technologies. I encourage you to keep them in mind as we move on. And with these factors in mind, the RD call to action are, if we counsel people who use insulin, we need the competence to expose them to what I'm referring to as burden-reducing technologies. So I am glad everyone is here. And because insurance coverage comes into play, know the basics on what most health plans cover regarding these devices. I will note, however, that with many of the devices, people can contact people, meaning the user can contact the company to have them check and navigate coverage. So how many people in the U.S. take insulin and how do they deliver it? About 7.4 million people with diabetes take insulin. Everyone with type 1 takes insulin, and there are about 1.6 million people with type 1. The majority of these individuals use multiple daily injections, which I'll abbreviate as MDI. While we think of type 1 as a pediatric disease, just sort of our long-term perception, Keep in mind the larger percent of people with type 1 today are older than 20, and that's a very positive statistic in my mind. About 5.8 million people with type 2 diabetes take insulin. That number is increasing due to the size of the population and the aging of the population. Some take only basal insulin matched with other glucose-lowering medications, and some use combination insulin. About half, 2 to 3 million of these individuals use MDI, especially as they age and their insulin reserves dwindle. And on to continuous subcutaneous insulin infusion systems, and I'm going to abbreviate that as insulin pumps and pods because that is a mouthful. We'll go into more depth on these devices. But it may surprise you that only about 30 to 40% of people with type 1 diabetes use or wear an insulin pump or pod, and a very small percent of people with type 2 diabetes use this therapy. But keep in mind that as we talk, that 2 to 3 million people with type 2 in the U.S. use MDI to manage their diabetes. And so think about how one of these newer devices that we'll discuss may be able to help them. This slide lists the topics we'll cover today. These certainly reflect the learning objectives. You'll see this slide a few times as we progress through the topics. Our first learning objective is the challenges and burdens of traditional insulin delivery devices. So let's define traditional insulin delivery devices. Insulin vials and syringes, and over time there have been ever shorter and finer needles. Interestingly, just a little factoid, in 2021 we will mark 100 years since insulin was discovered, and 2022 is 100 years since the first human was given insulin in Canada. And secondly, traditional insulin pens. They've been shown to help deliver insulin a bit more conveniently and precisely than with vials and syringes, but basically what they do is deliver insulin. I've touched on the fact that taking insulin multiple times a day is a task every day for many and is challenging and burdensome. As I go through this list, think about how you might put all the tasks of taking insulin into your daily life. I'll read through these quickly. These challenges and burdens are documented in research, and the August issue of ADCES's journal, The Diabetes Educator, which is referenced on the slide, has a supplement. The supplement is focused on smart insulin pens, and it reviews this research. So people need to be aware of all aspects of taking insulin, from the action curves to coordinating their life schedule with food, physical activity, etc., accounting for missed or delayed doses, wondering, did I take that insulin? Did I not take that insulin? Recording insulin dose times and related information. And you don't have to tell dietitians much about how difficult it is to get people to record information. Inability to track when doses are taken, managing and analyzing the data. Transferring data to the clinicians for analysis is pretty much of a nightmare, I think we can agree. The inability to calculate insulin on board, the amount of insulin that is still active in the system for the next bit of time, and that is valuable because it can prevent people from stacking insulin and having hypoglycemia. Limited ability to take insulin doses less than 1 unit with most syringes. There are some pens and syringes that measure in half a unit. And then lastly, but definitely not leastly, is the numeracy skills to calculate all the different factors that need to be calculated. So as we talk about the quote-unquote smarter, if you will, more quote-unquote connected newer devices, they overcome many of these challenges. And there's research that shows when people use devices that assist with bolus calculations, particularly, it helps people improve their care. This includes decreasing missed bolus doses, improving the accurate dose timing, which is something that I don't think we talk nearly enough about, increasing time and range, which is a newer metric in diabetes care. And I've given you a good reference from Battaglino on the slide to learn more. That was an international consensus report. Also, causes less glycemic variability, improves and maintains A1C, and importantly, from a psychological vantage point, reduced perceived cognitive burden and improved management satisfaction. So I think I'll summarize that by saying all good stuff when it comes to managing diabetes. So learning from the research is that it's our job as clinicians to better assess numeracy skills and assist people with diabetes with the math, bolus dose reminders, record keeping, and more, while hopefully reducing cognitive burden. And we can achieve some of this by working with people with diabetes to implement one or more of these new devices. Now on to our second learning objective, the role of connectivity and interoperability between insulin delivery devices and glucose monitoring devices. And I know you might be thinking, where in the world is she going? But these concepts are really central to what is going on with the newer insulin delivery system. So I feel like it's important to have you understand these and their relationship currently. So I will define these two terms. This slide focuses on connectivity. Regarding diabetes-related data and care, connectivity is the ability to connect or integrate data from various devices, be it a CGM, insulin pump, food and nutrient data, all into one single report. Then this report is easily shared by the person with diabetes with their clinician and for their own observation, analysis, shared decision-making as well. So both for the person with diabetes as well as that relationship between the person with diabetes and their clinician. Connectivity is the key to getting accurate transfer of data into understandable and usable reports to then use them collaboratively. Data integration and, in essence, data streamlining decreases the overwhelming nature of data. It offers a clearer and more complete picture of what's happening. So having this easily obtained data allows clinicians to spend zero time obtaining the data through what may seem like an interrogation to the person with diabetes, and allows the clinician to be more collaborative with the person with diabetes, promoting shared decision-making and a partnership. It is also very time efficient for all concerned. So in the next two slides, I have two examples of connected data reports. So this is really this distillation of data, I've called it. This data report is from a cloud-based device-specific data sharing platform. Specifically, it is one of the reports from Insights by InPen. The smart insulin pen we'll discuss further, and this insulin pen can connect either with a Dexcom G6 or Bluetooth-enabled blood glucose meter. You can quickly observe a lot of data from a 14-day period, and the clinician can use this to have collaborative, productive, data-driven conversations to, in a partnership, manage diabetes. This data report is from a cloud-based device agnostic versus proprietary data sharing platform. This is a report from Tidepool, a data sharing platform, and it shows 1 day of data from someone using the Dexcom G6 with a Tandem pump. The person with diabetes and clinician can easily see data aligned by time of day in the main section and then data analysis on the right from percent time in range, total carb intake, and more. So that's connectivity. The next term is interoperability as it relates to the evolving generation of insulin delivery devices. And you'll hear me mention that interoperability is beginning to play an increasing important role. This is just a general definition of interoperability. Related to diabetes devices, interoperability is the ability for the person with diabetes to purchase and use different diabetes devices or components of a complete system based on their device preferences. While that's not so relevant today, over time, people with diabetes may be able to purchase components of a whole system from more than one manufacturer. So you'll hear me mention interoperability a few times. Now on to our third learning objective is the FDA regulatory processes for insulin delivery devices. Again, it may seem superfluous to the topic, but I think it's extremely important that we have some baseline understanding to know how FDA regulates medical devices and specifically germane to our topic, insulin delivery technologies. Most devices are regulated within FDA's Center for Diagnostic and Radiological Health. Medical devices are reviewed through one of several pathways based on what classification the device fits into, and there are 3 classifications, and I'll let you read those on your own. For Class 1 and 2 devices, the entity or the business submits what's called a pre-market notification known as the 510K. If the device is positively reviewed, it's given what's known as clearance. You've already heard me use that word to market the technology, and it's referred to as FDA cleared. The word clearance is not interchangeable with approval. Class 3 devices sustain or support life, are implanted, and present potential or unreasonable risk of illness or injury. And that's FDA's words, not my words. Newer insulin pump systems are considered Class 3 devices. The entity submits a pre-market approval application known as a PMA. The technology undergoes a more rigorous review to determine reasonable assurance of safety and efficacy. If the device is positively reviewed, it's referred to as FDA approved and not interchangeable with clearance. So recently, this FDA division has made some changes to allow for faster innovation and greater interoperability. There's that word. And they have 2 new pathways, and I know this gets very detailed, but it will become relevant, and I will reuse some of the terms when we talk about the different insulin delivery technologies. So the de novo pre-market review pathway is, to an extent, laying the groundwork for automated insulin delivery systems, AID as I'll refer to them. They will include an interoperable, so there's that word, automated glycemic controller, abbreviated small I, capital AGC, that automatically adjusts insulin delivery by connecting to, here's another term, an alternate controller-enabled insulin pump, abbreviated as ACE pump. The technology must reliably and securely communicate with external devices that enable the receipt, confirmation, and execution of drug delivery commands. I've given 2 examples on the slide, one currently cleared device, the Tandem pump, and the other not yet submitted is the Omnipod Dash with Tidepool loop that I will mention. Then the second pathway, the second new pathway is Breakthrough Devices Program, and it just gives priority for fast access to innovative technology. The first to receive this designation is Medtronic's MiniMed 780G, which is not yet approved by FDA. So next topic is probably you're saying, when is she going to talk about these devices? So here's where we're going to spend a good bit of time on the categories of available and potential future insulin delivery devices in the U.S. marketplace. And these are the categories of devices that I'm going to go through. And you'll see this slide a couple times as I orient you to where I am in the presentation. And I want to give a quick thanks to all of the company representatives that kindly provided up-to-date information. Let me check that information with them for their slides, and also permission to use the images of their devices. So that is greatly appreciated. This roadmap, again, I've got two roadmaps in this presentation. This roadmap really was developed for a publication I wrote with David Kerr, as noted on the slide. And you'll also see this roadmap in the TDE, the Diabetes Educator Supplement that I mentioned. The roadmap walks through the stages from traditional to connected insulin delivery devices. So this refers more to the smart insulin pens and the simple patches that we'll discuss. There's another roadmap I'll show you on insulin pump therapy. So if we look at stage 0, that includes the traditional insulin delivery devices we discussed. They do not assist the person with challenges and burdens of taking insulin, particularly MDI. Stages 1 through 3 are tracking insulin pens or devices. What may be available from these devices, though there are none really on the U.S. market today other than one clip, is either retrospective data, real-time dosing data, or at stage 3 in this roadmap, integrated diabetes care reports. Stage 4 are smart insulin pens. The only smart insulin pen available in the U.S. today is the InPen. And regarding stage 5, there are currently no smart insulin pens or connected devices in this stage 5, but as you can see, evolution is quite fast-paced in this industry. So let's jump into all of these devices. And I have got the same information on all of these slides for these devices. And I will one by one review the devices. You'll see the manufacturer's name and the product website. Most often I won't state these, but you will have them by having the slides. So let's start with inhaled insulin. We've heard about inhaled insulin for many years, but to date the only FDA-approved product currently on the market is Afrezza. Afrezza is insulin in the form of an inhalation powder. So to describe Afrezza, it is cartridges of ultra-rapid acting insulin in 4, 8, and 12-unit single-dose cartridges. But I want you to read the asterisk there. Units of insulin are not the same as U100 insulin. So when people go on this device, they really need to do some trial and error to figure out what they need. So these little cartridges are placed in an inhaler device, which is in the person's hand to show you the size of it. And it's used for mealtime doses. I mean, really to cover food and, if need be, to cover highs. It's used in combination with a basal long-acting insulin. So if someone is using either a pen to take long-acting insulin or syringes and vials. So one difference here is that Afrezza was a drug, and it is approved by FDA through a drug approval process that was in 2014 for ages 18 and older. It's not indicated in people with COPD and asthma. So just with the age, you can see it's a little more oriented towards people with type 2, but that doesn't mean that people with type 1 don't use it. So it eliminates the need for bolus injections, and they do have a data integration connectivity platform. I'll let you read those details on your own. And because you all are RDs, I am putting on these slides if there are any food and nutrition features in these products. So this does, the Afrezza does not have any at this point. The first of two simple patches is the C-Cures Simplicity. And you've likely not heard of this device, or you're just beginning to, because they're really doing a small pilot release now with the hopes for a full launch in 2021. The C-Cure Simplicity is a 3-day wearable disposable insulin patch. It can be filled with up to 200 units of rapid-acting insulin, and its design is for mealtime bolus dosing. It has to be filled with a minimum of 100 units, and you deliver with 2 units per button squeeze. Each patch comes with a fill syringe, and the reusable inserter is in the starter kit. This was actually cleared by FDA a number of years ago, really 10 years ago at this point. It's been with a couple different companies, and now it is with C-Cure. And again, this is sort of oriented towards people with type 2. It is convenient, discreet, there's no injection, and it has some built-in safety mechanisms, and none on the other two bullet points on the slide. The other simple patch is the V-Go, and some of you may be aware of V-Go. It's been on the market for a bit, but it's under another company now. It's under Zealand Pharma. So this is a wearable insulin delivery patch. The description is that it simplifies MDI. It delivers both basal and bolus insulin. The user fills it with the cartridge with rapid-acting insulin, or the patch, I should say. It's available in those 3 different number of units for the basal dosing and up to 36 for bolus on-demand dosing in, again, 2-unit increments. So again, a little bit more designed for people with type 2, and you can see that it also was cleared about 10 years ago for people 21 and older who take insulin. And again, no data integration or food and nutrition features to date. Next, I've mentioned a couple times the only smart insulin pen available today is the InPen, and the companion is now in the Medtronic family of products. The product is InPen with the Insights by InPen Diabetes Management App System, which is why I'm showing you the image with both the pen and a screenshot of the app. It is a durable, reusable pen, so it's not a disposable pen. It's durable, reusable. It uses pre-filled 300-unit cartridges of U100, those 3 types of insulin on the slide, and it delivers bolus doses down to 0.5 unit increments up to 30 units. It was cleared in 2016 for ages 12 and above. In 2020, they applied for and received expanded clearance for all ages with a caveat that I've referenced on the slide. And an additional clearance in 2020 was for 2 additional meal modes. The assets really are many. I have a few on the slide. It reminds people of missed doses, which is huge. If you look at the data around missed doses and delayed doses, there's auto prime detection. Dose calculator is configured by the clinician on with personalized therapy settings. And what's wonderful is, even though this is just delivering bolus insulin, it records all data about insulin taking. There is wireless transmission via Bluetooth to this Insights by InPen app or data management system. that is shareable with clinicians from your smartphone, and it integrates with the Dexcom G6 and Bluetooth-enabled blood glucose meters. There are now 3 meal modes in the system, and one is sort of the least intensive, if you will, is fixed doses, so the clinician can set the person up using fixed amounts of insulin for certain amount of food they're going to eat, or meal estimation is sort of the next aggressive, where it's really about relative size of meal, and you'll hear me mention this again with another device, whether someone for themselves is eating a small, medium, or large meal. And then the usual, what we see is carb counting. But this is to help people who either don't understand carb counting at that point, or just aren't really going to do carb counting. The next device, which is not yet on the market, is Bigfoot Biomedical's Bigfoot Unity Diabetes Management Program. So long name. But the description of this, and really the best image to look at is the one to the lower right, is a connected pen-based system with 2 smart digital pen caps. So one would use one on their basal insulin and one on their rapid-acting insulin. These can be used on any types of insulin. This comes along with the Abbott Freestyle Libre 2, and you can see the disc that goes on the arm. And then they also have a proprietary blood glucose meter. They have very recently filed a pre-market notification. Now you all know what that means, with the FDA in July. And the whole point of this system has been an all-in-one solution, or a package. So it's the device plus software plus service that you're purchasing from one entity, and they talk about being able to deliver training and ongoing support to people. There's none on those other 2 features. So we'll move now into insulin pumps and pod management systems and the evolution of the future. And this is the second roadmap that I wanted to show you, because I think it helps in this discussion. This is the 2015 roadmap, the second generation of the 2009 roadmap that was developed by Dr. Aaron Kowalski. And I've given you references for both of those roadmaps and publications that they were in. Dr. Kowalski lives with type 1 diabetes, and he is now the CEO of JDRF. This roadmap takes us through what Kowalski predicted would be the development stages of AID systems, and things are moving right along 5-6 years later. Looking at stage 1, we now have pumps that can automatically suspend delivery, such as the current Medtronic systems, 670G and 770G, which we'll talk about, and the Tandem T-Slim ×2 systems. Looking at stage 2, these systems also, with human inputs, can minimize hypoglycemia by suspending insulin, or minimizing hyperglycemia by delivering more insulin. Looking at the 3A, fully automated insulin delivery systems, are pretty likely in 2021. And 3B refers to AID systems that aim to deliver 2 hormones, insulin and either glucagon or synthetic amylin, pramlintide. I'll share more about one of these systems, the Beta Bionic system. So going in alphabetical order, Insulet is first. So this is the Omnipod DASH insulin management system. At present, it is the only pod-type tubeless system on the U.S. marketplace. So insulin is delivered via a filled pod. You can fill it with up to 200 units. It has an automatic insertion. I've mentioned it is tubeless, communicates with the pod through a lockdown Android device. This generation was cleared by FDA in 2018 for all people who use insulin. The pod is waterproof. It provides for discrete insulin delivery. And the model that's a little bit different with Insulet systems is that they are not considered durable medical equipment, and they're covered under Medicare Part B. Supplies are available at some pharmacies, and so there's somewhat of a lower upfront cost compared with other insulin pumps. I won't go into all these details, but there is a lot of data integration. However, there is not at this point, there is not an integrated CGM with this system, though there are some workarounds through some apps and widgets. Insulet uses Calorie King, which is a very broad, most of us are all familiar with that, food and nutrient database, which is integrated into the Android device that you see on the screen. So moving to what's in the future, Insulet has been working on a product that they call Omnipod 5. For a while it was called Omnipod Horizon, but they have changed that. And I think following the image on the right is really helpful. This is a full-on body advanced hybrid closed loop, which is AHCL and AID system. The Dexcom G6 transmitter communicates directly to a wearable insulin-filled pod. Then there is personalized model predictive control, known as MPC, algorithm, which is built into the pod. The controller used to start and stop automated mode, deliver boluses, and set changes. So that's a little bit about what's coming. It is investigational, and I've got some hopeful dates from the Insulet folks on when they hope to file. I believe they just completed their pivotal study that FDA requires. And there's some information there. Also, I'll let you read it on your own about their connectivity and platform and app that they hope to have with the Omnipod 5. And my guess is Calorie King will continue to be integrated, but I don't know that for a fact. And at the very bottom with an asterisk, I have another product that is in development. The Omnipod Dash that I shared in the last slide is being integrated with Tidepool Loop. I mentioned Tidepool. They're a data sharing platform, and they've developed an algorithm that's an open source iOS-based app, and they are going to seek FDA clearance as an interoperable automated glycemic controller, or IAGC. Moving into the 3 slides I have on Medtronic MiniMed systems. 2 are currently available and are quite similar, but I will point out the differences. The first is the 670G, which was approved a few years ago. It is a hybrid closed loop system, HCL. It functions with SmartGuard auto mode algorithm, which is the algorithm that powers the pump system. Still requires bolus doses for food and carb. It'll automatically adjust basal insulin every 5 minutes based on an integrated CGM, their Guardian Sensor 3, and it assists with under or overestimation of carb intake. It suspends insulin up to 30 minutes before reaching a preset low, or auto restarts when glucose recovers. It holds up to 300 units of rapid-acting insulin, and as the image shows, it comes with the Contour Next BGM, and that links wirelessly. But again, it also has built-in CGM. So this was approved in 2017 for ages 7 and up. The pump is waterproof, holds a lot of history, and insulin delivery can be in small increments. CareLink is Medtronic's proprietary software that integrates all data. And while there's no food and nutrition features at the moment in believe any of their systems, Medtronic has acquired two food nutrition entities, Nutrino and Clue, and you can look for those press releases on their website. So the Medtronic 770G has a lot of similarities, but I will point out a couple of differences. So you did not see on the previous slide, which I just went back to, our familiar looking smartphone in the image, and that's because that's a big change that I'll mention in the 770G. You'll see a lot of wording, and I won't reread it. I'm just going to point out differences. This product comes with the Roche Accu-Check Guide Link meter, but again, the Guardian Sensor 3 is the integrated CGM. This was just approved just over a month ago, and it was approved for ages 2 years and up, so quite a wide age range for approval. Same information about assets to the 670G, and it also integrates with the CareLink software. But here's some of the key differences, is that there is smartphone connectivity, which allows viewing pump and CGM info on the smartphone and getting device notifications on the phone. Also new is it offers remote access to data to care partners. So people could have their spouse or parents could be getting the data from their children, which is obviously a huge asset. And the Bluetooth connectivity that is built into the 770G that was not in the 670G will allow for future software updates. So the next slide is talking about the 7080G, which is Medtronic's next generation system. This is being called an advanced hybrid closed loop automated insulin delivery. Won't go over all the details there because the description is pretty much the same as the others, other than allowing for adjustable target settings down to 100 milligrams per deciliter, and it assists with under or overestimation of carbohydrate intake. It is not approved. It has received CE mark, which is sort of the FDA equivalent in Europe. And again, with data integration and connectivity, all of the same features of the 770G, and again, that connectivity will allow for future software updates. And to our third and really last on the market currently system is to Tandem Systems. So the sort of most advanced system from Tandem is the T-Slim X2 with Control-IQ, and the Basal-IQ system is also still available, and I've got an asterisk by their next generation product, which I'll mention in a moment. So this is an advanced hybrid closed loop AID system. It predicts and helps prevent hypo and hypoglycemia. It's integrated with the Dexcom G6, data to hold glucose in the range of 70 to 180, which is the sort of over generally agreed upon time in range parameters, and it auto-corrects bolus doses and there are optional settings for sleep and exercise. The Control-IQ was cleared in 2019, I believe roughly a year ago, for ages 14 and up, and then 2020 they received applied for and received an additional clearance for ages 6 and up. Both of these devices, Basal-IQ and Control-IQ, are cleared by FDA's interoperable automated glycemic controllers, and that's why I wanted you to know those terms that FDA set up, IAGC. You know, what I think is the uniqueness, or was the uniqueness, because Medtronic is implementing this with their 770G, is unique, free, updatable software that uploads for the next generation. But people can't just do this. They have to have a prescription, and they have to go through some training and online tutorials. The Tandem integrates with the Dexcom G6, and they are developing a T-Connect portal with an app. And while it's not integrated, Tandem fairly recently purchased another sort of nutrition-oriented company called Sugarmate, and I believe I've given you the press release for that. The future with Tandem is working on a product that they're calling T-Sport, or T:/Sport, which is a discrete tubed pump, or they call it a micro pump, with no screen. The control will be from a person's smartphone. And they state that they will file with FDA at the end of 2020. So let's move on to, when I mentioned the Kowalski roadmap, I mentioned 2 bihormonal systems, and here is one. This is Beta Bionics. The product is the iLet. It's been referred to as the bionic pancreas. They want to make this a bihormonal device, and you can sort of see the 2 ports in the image. But at this point, because there is no FDA-approved liquid stable glucagon approved as a drug on the market, they are moving forward with an insulin-only product, and this is currently in a pivotal trial for FDA approval. This is a pocket-sized device. It's wearable. And it autonomously controls blood glucose, and it's integrated at this point with a Dexcom G6, as I said, not submitted next. And I think what's different here, and I think you're going to see this more as we move forward with AID systems, is using the term meal announcements. And the nurse practitioner that works for Beta Bionics translated that as, hey, I'm eating now. But they're based on the relative carb intake per person per meal. So is someone eating a small meal for them or a large meal for them? And then the system keeps learning and adjusting based on the wearer's behaviors and results. So I want to lastly go to do-it-yourself automated insulin delivery systems. And you may be going, oh my goodness, what is she talking about? And I've given you some references here. But these are non-FDA cleared or approved systems. They are do-it-yourself. Thousands of individuals globally have tried or consistently used one of the non-FDA approved do-it-yourself systems. These are really AID systems, or used to be called artificial pancreas systems, but we've sort of dropped that term. This was sort of instigated by a hashtag We Are Not Waiting community, impatient with regulatory bodies. It was developed and assembled, the assembled controller and algorithm, and it's really supported amazingly by very tech-savvy people with diabetes or loved ones globally. So it's really an amazing group of people to see in action and get to know, and I've had that privilege. There are 2 non-FDA approved off-label systems. People use an older Medtronic pump, or they use an Omnipod older system. With real-time CGM, a controller and algorithm to automate insulin delivery. The controller, and I have some graphics in my next slide that I'll show you, is a small circuit board and an algorithm, and they work together to communicate with the pump and CGM. Data inputs delivered every 5 minutes and revises insulin delivery rates up and down based on the data that it's getting. There's no manufacturer support, but there is global community support. So this is some pictures for you. These are courtesy of a good friend of mine's son who developed type 1 a few years ago at age 30, and he has been using this Omnipod loop for about 6 months now. So you see the pod on his arm. The next images that is the Riley link. You're probably not familiar with that, but that is the controller and algorithm that I mentioned. You can see where his Dexcom is, and then the next over, you can see that's just a snapshot close of his iPhone, and what shows up is the Loop system that he's using, and then a few of the graphics. So I want to just finish up by talking about the roles for RDs in guiding people to the right devices. So what are some of our potential roles? I think firstly, when counseling people with diabetes, we must show compassion and empathy, as I'm sure you all do, and understand that this is a really demanding disease, both physically and psychologically. When counseling people who take insulin using MDI, or maybe they're using an older pump, share bit-sized pieces of info with them about the technology evolution and current status. Saying maybe this could make your management slightly easier. And I never use the word easy when it comes to managing diabetes. But realize that most people don't know what they don't know and don't necessarily keep up on new technology. Clients can understandably have an if it ain't broke, don't fix it attitude, like, no, I don't want to change what I'm currently doing. And if you train and manage clients on devices, make sure these devices are configured accurately, and I mean personalized to them, to their ins and outs of their daily life and daily schedule. You've got to really understand that person's life and lifestyle. Use the data to optimize their daily management, reduce daily burden of disease, and improve their long-term outcomes. Recognize that people's lives change and their desire to do self-care waxes and wanes, and always check in on their emotional well-being, and hopefully that will lead to creating a comfortable and healthy partnership between you and the person. And staying up to date, and I have a whole slide on some of my suggestions about staying up to date in this area. And I will let you review those on your own. None of this is really rocket science, but I've given you the names of some publications that I would encourage you reading, networking with particularly diabetes-focused colleagues, befriending sales and clinical reps, looking at these websites. Use the websites as you're explaining products to people. Joining ADCES to gain access to their technology portal called danatech.org. And then I just wanted to lastly show you a slide from 3 certificate, not certification, but certificate programs that ADCES has developed. And these are free to members, and they are purchasable by non-members. So with that, I am going to hand this back to Leslie to conclude the webinar.
Thank you so much, Hope. We have about 1 minute till the top of the hour, but I want to encourage people, if you can, to stay on the line because we have several really good questions. If you can hang on for 3 or 4 more minutes, we'll answer a few of those. So first one, Hope, sort of starting from the top and working my way through the list. There's a few categories that I sort of classified questions into, and most of them come from the technology side. The first question I think is one that has come up a lot, and we'll answer a few people's concerns. What does someone do if the connectivity fails? Does the person know? Do they not know? Do they still get the dose of insulin? Any information and light you can shed on that?
So, that's really a lot of questions there. I almost can't break that apart, but I guess one thing I would say that there are a lot of backups on systems. And again, this really varies. I mean, we're talking about a big gamut of products here. I mean, there certainly have been some lack of connectivity that has occurred with some of the CGMs. And for those, I think people need to have their backup BGM systems that they can, that they can use over the hours that they may not have connectivity.
Okay. In that same vein, are there any issues with privacy with the smart insulin products? Should people be concerned about privacy?
No, I would say not. In terms of access to data, I don't know exactly what, I would say there should be no privacy concerns.
Okay. Let's see. Regarding the C-Cure Simplicity specifically, do you know if there's any built-in safety mechanisms? Anna is thinking she can imagine someone losing track of how many clicks they've made.
I don't know that I can give a good answer to that. I could probably get one, or if they're beginning to have sales reps in different parts of the country. So I think that's a really good question to ask.
Great.
But I have to believe there are built-in safety factors.
I would think, yeah. Okay, let's move on to some questions about accuracy. So from Bailey, which is more accurate, a finger stick blood sugar reading or a reading from your CGM?
So CGMs today, and again, everyone needs to appreciate there's been evolution in all of these devices, but accuracy today is very, very high on CGMs. And there's something called MARD that I won't go into, but that really is the percentage accuracy. They need to meet certain standards that are required by FDA, and this all happens. I mean, CGMs are approved by FDA as well, or cleared by FDA. So they're very tight, and also FDA now allows, they didn't originally, but now allows for non-adjunctive testing with the CGM. That means using the data from the CGM with which to make bolus dose decisions.
Okay. I want to switch gears and answer Richard's question, and that relates more so to the end of your presentation with how RDs can support their patients. To help someone see the benefits with improved control or lifestyle activities, do you suggest, or do you think that the peer-to-peer approach, someone having successfully used a more quote-unquote techie device, would help someone get over the "it ain't broke, don't fix it" mindset?
Absolutely. I am all for peer-to-peer and peer support. In fact, when I was writing those notes, I thought I really wanted to mention that as well. I mean, if you as a clinician can tap someone who is using that device and you have their permission to have the person that you're currently counseling talk to them, by absolutely all means. I mean, I don't have diabetes. I don't take insulin. And I learn a huge amount from people who use these devices.
Excellent. I think that's a good one to end on. I do want to point everyone in the direction of Hope's reference list, which was emailed out earlier this morning. And you can also pull that down from the Event Resources tab on the left side of your screen. There's a ton of great resources she's included, so be sure to download that and take a look for yourself there. So thanks so much, Hope. Thank you so much for sharing your expertise. We're so glad you joined us today for this important topic.
Thank you.
And of course, we also want to thank Medtronic and Hormel Health Labs for supporting the Today's Dietitian audience through the quality programming like you've just experienced.
Instructions for credit claiming and downloading handouts should be up on your screen. You must complete a brief evaluation of the course in order to claim your credit and download your certificate. Registered dietitians should use code 175 when recording this activity in their professional development portfolio. If you are watching this webinar on our YouTube channel, please log into ce.todaysdietitian.com, click on the Webinars tab, and select this webinar in order to complete it for credit. If you are watching this webinar on our CE Learning Library website, click Next, or return to the course start page and select the evaluation step to complete this webinar for credit.